Somewhere right now, someone who won millions of dollars is filing for bankruptcy, not because the money ran out on its own, because of what happened in the first 6 months after it landed in their account. You've probably heard the number. Something like 70% of people who come into sudden wealth, lottery winnings included, end up broke within a few years. Your first instinct is to blame the person. Bad decisions, no discipline, never had money, never learned to keep it. Here's what actually happens, and it has almost nothing to do with willpower. Picture a squirrel who spends her whole life burying one acorn at a time. She knows exactly how many she has. She knows exactly how long they'll last. Then one day a truck dumps 10,000 acorns in her yard all at once. You'd think this is the best possible outcome for a squirrel. It isn't, because every instinct she built for managing scarcity was never built for managing a truckload. She doesn't suddenly know how to think in 10,000s. She still thinks in ones. That's the real story behind sudden wealth going broke. Your brain doesn't get an upgrade the moment your bank balance does. Psychologist Philip Brickman, along with Dan Coates and Ronnie Jenoff Bullman, ran a now famous study back in 1978 comparing lottery winners to a control group and, separately, to people who'd survived catastrophic accidents. The lottery winners weren't measurably happier than everyone else within about a year. Not because winning didn't feel incredible, it did for a while. But happiness has a baseline, and people drift back to it faster than you'd expect, whether the news was wonderful or devastating. Researchers call this hedonic adaptation. Your reference point for normal quietly resets to match whatever your life currently looks like. And once it resets, you need more just to feel the same lift you felt the first time. Penny understands this one personally.
The first acorn tastes like victory. The thousandth just tastes like an acorn.
Here's where it gets expensive. If your sense of normal resets around a bigger number, so does your spending, without you consciously deciding anything. The car that felt like plenty becomes the car you're a little embarrassed to park next to your new house. The house feels too small within a year, even though nothing about it changed except what you're now comparing it to. This isn't a character flaw. It's your brain doing exactly what it's built to do, quietly upgrading its idea of baseline to match your new environment, and then spending accordingly to keep up with a version of normal that keeps moving the goalpost. Economist Jay Zagorski at Ohio State ran the numbers directly on this question, tracking a large group of Americans over decades using long-term national survey data, comparing people who received a financial windfall to those who didn't. His findings surprised a lot of people expecting a rags-to-riches redemption story. A sudden inflow of cash didn't reliably predict long-term financial security at all. People who were bad at managing money before the windfall were, on average, still bad at managing money afterward, just now with a much bigger number to be bad at managing. The money didn't fix the underlying system. It just tested it at a scale the system was never built for. You're not imagining that a bigger paycheck doesn't automatically feel like enough. It's not supposed to, not without something else changing first. Now add the part nobody warns you about until it's already happening. Other people. Financial psychologist Brad Klontz has spent years studying what he calls money scripts, the deep, often unconscious beliefs people carry about what money means and what you owe the people around you because of it. The moment sudden wealth becomes visible, family members ask for help. Old friends resurface with investment opportunities. Distant cousins remember your birthday for the first time in a decade. Saying no to any single request feels small and mean in isolation. Saying no to 50 of them, spread across 2 years, is the actual math nobody does in advance, and most people would rather quietly drain an account than have the same uncomfortable conversation 50 separate times. Penny keeps her ledger hidden for exactly this reason.
The moment they see the pile, they stop asking if you're doing well. They start asking for a piece of it.
There's a structural trap sitting underneath all of this, and it's the one that actually explains the bankruptcies, not just the overspending. Most sudden wealth arrives as a single lump sum, not as income spread across years. A lump sum feels less real than a paycheck, psychologically. There's no recurring reminder of exactly how much is left, no monthly statement forcing a gut check, the way a shrinking checking account does after each paycheck runs dry. Big numbers are also notoriously hard for the human brain to intuitively track. $10 million doesn't feel meaningfully different from $4 million once you're just looking at a screen with a lot of zeros on it, even though the actual gap between those two numbers could fund a comfortable retirement on its own. This is exactly the same failure mode as any other spending mistake, just with more zeros attached. A $12 subscription doesn't feel like anything in the moment because your brain isn't built to register small numbers as a threat. A seven-figure balance doesn't feel finite for the same underlying reason, just inverted. Both cases come down to the same thing. Your brain evaluates money by how it feels right now, not by doing the actual math on what remains. So, what would it look like to actually keep it? Not get lucky and keep it by accident. Actually keep it on purpose, using a system built for exactly this kind of failure instead of hoping willpower shows up when it matters most. The first move financial advisors who specialize in sudden wealth consistently recommend is almost boring on purpose. Do nothing significant for the first 6 months. Park the money somewhere safe and low risk, make no major purchases, sign nothing, commit to nothing. The emotional high after a windfall behaves a lot like the emotional low after a crisis. Big decisions made during a spike rarely hold up once the spike passes, and 6 months is roughly how long it takes for that initial high to settle into something closer to your actual baseline judgment. The second move is converting the lump sum into something that behaves like a paycheck again, on purpose. Structured payouts, annuities, or a disciplined monthly draw recreate the exact signal a regular income provides, a recurring visible reminder of what's coming in and what's going out, instead of one enormous number that never forces a gut check. This single structural choice does more to prevent the bankruptcy statistic than any amount of discipline layered on top of a lump sum sitting untouched in a checking account. The third move is deciding the family and friends answer once in advance, before the first request ever arrives. A predetermined number, a one-time gift with a clear boundary stated up front, closes the door on the slow bleed of 50 separate uncomfortable conversations because the conversation already happened before anyone thought to ask. Penny has one line she uses for every single acorn request now.
I already decided. The answer was decided before you asked.
There's a fourth move worth naming separately because it's the one that makes the other three sustainable instead of just temporarily uncomfortable. Find one person whose job is specifically to say no on your behalf. A fee-only financial advisor with no stake in what you buy or invest in. Someone structurally incapable of benefiting from your impulse purchases the way a commission-based salesperson or an eager relative might. The value isn't really the investment advice, useful as that is. The value is having a built-in delay between the impulse and the purchase. A second person who has to sign off before six figures moves anywhere, standing between your spiked emotional state and your bank account until the spike has time to pass. None of this requires becoming a different kind of person overnight. It requires treating a sudden windfall the way you'd treat any environment your instincts weren't built for, with structure standing in for the instincts you don't have yet. The squirrel with the truckload of acorns doesn't need better willpower. She needs a system that doesn't rely on her suddenly knowing how to think in 10,000s. It's also worth saying plainly that this isn't only a lottery winner problem, even though lottery winners make the most dramatic headlines. A large severance check, an inheritance, a startup exit, even a big year-end bonus, all trigger the exact same psychological pattern at a smaller scale. A lump sum arrives, the baseline quietly resets, spending drifts upward to match a new normal nobody consciously chose, and the visible cash cushion makes the whole process feel safe right up until it isn't. The mechanism doesn't care how many zeros are involved. It only cares whether the money showed up as a single number large enough to blur your sense of scale and whether anything was in place to catch that blur before it turned into a habit. So no, the lottery winners going broke within a few years were never simply bad with money in some permanent personal way. They were normal brains running normal wiring at a scale that wiring was never built for, with no system in place to catch what instinct alone was always going to miss.